Hello, class. It is I, Jesse Keeter, and I'm going to be your mock professor today. And today we're going to be learning about something actually quite important. Now, throughout the 8 weeks in our introductory to Spanish, we have learned many things from basic sentence construction in Spanish to verbs, adverbs, conjunctions with different words, and so much more. How to speak in basic Spanish, how to communicate with others, and how to understand those who communicate in Spanish. However, today we're going to be covering something that doesn't just simply involve Spanish, but rather language and communication as a whole. Now, I will give you a second to think to yourself on what that might be. And if you guessed the importance of said communication and, more importantly, language, then you are absolutely correct. And we have a short PowerPoint presentation to kind of like illustrate the core questions we're going to be asking in this short seminar today. We're going to be going over to that right now. So here you go. Don't worry about that. Oh, wait, hold on. I actually do need to get rid of... Wait, give me 1 second. Ooh. Alright, there we go. We've gotten rid of that. We actually, side note, I do use this setup for streaming as well, but we're not going to be talking about that currently. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here we are to our slideshow, and we are going to begin. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, to the importance of learning another language. And as I said, this, while yes, it involves Spanish, because Spanish, fun fact, is the second most spoken language in the United States of America, next to English, of course. But just more on a general basis, learning a language is, just any language, is quite important due to multiple factors in which we are going to be talking about in this seminar. Firstly, the first question we're going to be asking ourselves is, what exactly is a language? Well, English, for example, the language in which you're interpreting right now, in which I'm speaking to you, is a series of vocal cues strung together in, how do I put this in a not so abstract way? In such a way in which other individuals understand. Language is a key factor to many, many things. Obviously, the basics of that is communication, how we communicate, how you can understand what I'm telling you right now. Other factors is that, the importance of language and what exactly can it mean is how it correlates with where you live. For example, English, as we know it, of course, we speak a variation for those who live in America, a variation of English. However, English does not originate here in the States. It originates over in Europe. Now, there's many forms of English and extensions, Spanish being one of those extension of the English tree. Fun fact for you guys. However, there are other language structures. We're not going to go into depth, but they're mostly split up between Western and Eastern cultures. What I mean by that is, as I said, English has many extensions of its language tree, so to speak, like German, Spanish, Dutch, and all the, in a lot of languages you would typically find in Europe and, more importantly, the United States. However, you also have many language structures in Eastern cultures, like Chinese, Japanese, Korean. Chinese technically being Mandarin, and then you have varied versions of Mandarin depending on the region, especially in mainland China. Especially when you go towards Vietnam, you have like what this class introduced, which is Spanlinguish. Spanlinguish, where it's a combination of the language in which Vietnamese speak and Mandarin. So you have a crisscross of different languages being spoken in different regions. That just depends. But generally speaking, that is used to communicate with one another, to write sentences, and language is, as history dates back, is one of the building blocks to modern society, because without language we can't really communicate, because language also goes over to writing as well, which is also very important for keeping history records, to keeping documents about what happened, to simply just document what's going on. Doesn't even have to be related to history. But we're going to move on to our next question, which is, why is learning another language important? Now, there are many aspects to this. Starting off with the plain and simple, why not learn another language? It can be very helpful with simply, as we stated before, communicating with more individuals. You can create more relationships with when you remove that language barrier, which is very important. Other things you can do as well, going into the more what's the word I'm looking for? The in detailed description of why learning another language is important, especially Spanish here in the United States, is because, as said before, Spanish is the second most spoken language in the States. Now, usually the key thing in making money from a business perspective, making money is to have connections, right? And you can form connections with language. Now, obviously, you can form connections with English-speaking individuals, but since, again, the United States and there are other countries who follow the similar tree to Spanish, with slight variations, of course, you create more connections than you wouldn't normally have when you develop 1, 3, 5 languages. Your door of opportunities really do open. And again, that's in the business aspect, and especially too when getting a job. One of the main things, especially when dealing with customer service or anything to do with people, is stores and companies typically prefer to have people who are adept in speaking multiple languages. Now, more on the side of, your mental focus, learning another languages, and this goes for kind of learning anything, but learning another language really sets something off in your brain, so to speak. You tend to have a higher comprehension level than those who only speak one language. This has been backed up by studies and such, which you could find in the original introductory Spanish class, which this lesson is based off of. But generally speaking, while it's not anything major, right, like learning another language furthers your health, it can indirectly help you kind of retrain your brain to become more laser focused and have a better aptitude for comprehension of reading, writing, listening, all sorts of things. And that's just really important. But we're going to be moving on to our next question, which is, well, who can use other languages? And well, this might be a very simple answer. Anyone can. Now, piggybacking off of what we said before, where learning languages can improve your mental focus, studies have shown that earlier or younger individuals, especially adolescents like children to teenagers, tend to have an easier time learning languages, because learning a language is a very wide spectrum, and it requires a lot of dedication and the use of the language and such. And typically speaking, it's for any younger individual, it's a lot easier to learn versus when you're like in your 60s and stuff, because with, you know, kind of age catches up with you, so you're not as laser focused as you once were when you were a teenager, you know. But even if you're 60, right, you can learn a language. It's gonna, granted, I will grant you this, it will be maybe a little bit harder. It might require more dedication and willpower. However, no, and I want to stress this, no one cannot, I don't, there's no such thing as a person having the inability to learn something. And this is not exclusive to learning a language. This is more of a broad spectrum to when you're learning anything, right? You can learn anything you put your mind to, right? Granted, if you have like a learning disability, or if you're just older, right? Or if you don't have time, it will be harder. But just because things might be a little hard doesn't mean it's impossible. When you say something is impossible, you're putting that limitation on yourself, right? Right. We live in a time and in a society where information, you know, is so easily accessible that even the misfortunate and unwealthy can have access to a wealth of information that in previously was unheard of, right? You had to have certain wealth or social standing to gather to be able to pertain such information. But we live in a modern society where that wall is just completely broken down, and anyone can learn as long as they have the willpower and the ability to apply themselves. So, that being said, though, we're gonna move on to our next question, which is, when can I learn another language? Like, when? Well, just like the previous question, this answer is quite simple, right? You can learn anytime. It doesn't, you know, hell, you can learn right now. You can just simply stop listening to what I have to say, go learn yourself some German. Of course, it'd be preferred, since this is pertained to our Spanish class, you could always learn some Spanish at Eastern Gateway. But of course, you can learn anytime. Doesn't matter. You can learn now, 2 days from now, a month from now, a year from now. Doesn't matter. The opportunity really is open for you at any time. Unless if you know, are on your deathbed, right? The present is the most opportune time to do something, as I like to say. But with that being said, though, we're going to go on to our next question. Where would I start learning another language? As I said previously, you could always come to Eastern Gateway and learn yourself a language, right? That is what I'm currently doing, learning Spanish. However, not everyone is fortunate enough to be able to sink money into a college, whether it be community or a university. So there are other ways of learning languages. For example, right? While yes, I am learning Spanish through Eastern Gateway through my very amazing Spanish teacher. We also can learn language through Duolingo. Duolingo is an app where you can install it. Now, obviously, you can pay a little money to have like premium access to certain things, but generally speaking, as long as you're okay with listening to ads and stuff once in a while, Duolingo is the perfect place for you to simply pick up your phone and learn a language. It's that simple, right? Obviously, there's other websites online when involving learning a language, or you can even simply just use Google Translate and start teaching yourself certain phrases and words and eventually accumulate that knowledge. However, I do want to put an advisory on when you're looking up websites online is never go on a website that seems sketchy or unsafe. I do want to add that as a side note. But generally speaking, you can learn a language anywhere, right? Even from your parents. If your parents speak a foreign language, or if a friend speaks a foreign language, if you guys are close enough, you can ask them for some assistance, for some pointers. You literally learn. This kind of like ties into what we were talking about previously too. The opportune time to do something is in the present. Nothing is enabling you except yourself, right? Granted, it will be hard to do things. I'm not going to discredit that. So let's say you working 80 hours a week. That's okay. It's you're working is you always can find the time if you have the willpower to do so. So always just keep that in mind when picking up a language, whether it be Spanish, Mandarin, German, Dutch, doesn't matter. And this leaves us with our conclusion. What is our conclusion? Well, I think our conclusion is no matter which way you put it, learning a language is very important. Now, obviously, this ties into our Spanish class and our lessons quite well for our 8 weeks of introductory Spanish. So I would say that of all the languages that you could pick up, if you live in the States at least, one of the main languages you can learn is Spanish. That is for a multitude of reasons, but it kind of boils down to, it's the second most spoken language. It can help you in a lot of business and job opportunities. It can help you make more friends and relationships with people, whether it be romantic, simply friendship, or something else, right? It can help you simply just communicate, even if you don't want to make friends. Let's say you're super antisocial, right? You can when let's say you work in retail, for example, right? Someone in another language asks you, or like for instance, a friendly Spanish lady comes up with you, like kind of like reminds you of your grandmother, right? She asks you, "Where's the bread at?" But you don't know what she's asking, because you don't have that prior knowledge. You see, in situations like that, it can be very important to learn those like Spanish and any other language, because you can simply have the ability to understand others and help, right? And I think that's the main takeaway for this. But with that being said, though, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be ending here. Alright, we're going to be kind of going back to our little thing, and here we go. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, right, that was our lesson. I hope you did enjoy. I hope those reasons gave you enough, I guess I hope it gave you enough reason to kind of like, to really go out there and learn a language. Whether it be for yourself or from external reasoning, right? I hope you take that initiative. With that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas break. Right, this is our last semester, so I hope everyone has a wonderful time. I hope you, my wonderful professor, also has a wonderful Christmas break, or whoever decides to watch this at any given point. I hope you're having a wonderful day. But with that being said, I will be ending this, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.